You know, there's a great mystery here. And we think we know something about life. It's a very interesting situation that we find ourselves in. If everyone could just take a moment and just lift your hand up. Just lift your hand up. And then put it down. How did you do that?
Will.
Sorry?
Willpower.
You just thought about lifting your hand up, didn't you? And it did. How did that happen?
Will.
What is that?
Well, that's the mystery.
The body obeys the mind, luckily, or in this case.
Who's obeying what?
The
Who's obeying what?
Oh.
Who is obeying what? You just bring a thought.
Mm.
This is what's happening. Really. Right? Consider it for a second. Move your left hand. Yeah, if you're looking, yeah. It's a mystery. This entire life is a mystery. The truth is, we don't know anything about it. We don't know. I mean, and even the great scientists, even the great scientists who study consciousness don't know a thing about it. And what's the big problem of consciousness? Is anyone here? What's the big problem? The hard problem. The hard problem.
How there's a subjective experience.
Yeah. What is this I? How is it that there's a subject? This me. That's the hard problem of consciousness. Not a single scientist really has a clue. That's why it's called the hard problem. It's a singularity. What was here before the universe? So we can study it in workshop, and we can say Om. We can hear it, and we can work with it. We can practice it some. We can see something about it. But whose Om is that?
Ever present.
Sorry?
Ever present.
Hi.
It's a great mystery. I mean, here we're trying to fill words into this, but it's a very interesting situation. We live a life, but we don't know anything about life. We learn something about transactional rules. If I give you this, you give me that. If I give you a smile, maybe you give me a smile in return. If I give you anger, if I yell at you, maybe you yell at me in return. So we learn something about transactional rules. We shop the markets, we buy things. But I mean, the truth really is we don't understand. Isn't it?
Yeah.
But we've come from a place where we thought we did. Right? We thought we knew what it was about. We thought we knew what would provide happiness. And we've been learning for a while it doesn't. So what have we learned?
The things that don't bring happiness.
Yeah, we've learned we don't know. This ego is a very funny thing. Really, it is. This ego is a very funny thing. Because it supports the notion that I do know. And it hides and obfuscates. And then these mechanisms that happen, this fight or flight, protecting something that we actually don't understand. We chanted together Devi Mahatmyam. And if we read what's stated in here, this is the mother. India is the mother, but just the first page of it. Salutation to the goddess, who among all the created is considered as Maya, illusory power of Lord Vishnu, which is a mystery to us, known as consciousness, known as intellect, in the form of sleep, hunger in every being, shadow in every being. So we have this idea, I eat, for example. Just for a second. We have this idea that I eat. How? Are you in control of the digestive functions? Are you distributing the nutrients into the blood? And are you causing the blood flow through the body?
Am I moving the jaw?
Are you moving the jaw? Are you really aware of the mechanics of moving the jaw? Or are you just sitting there, maybe you think about it, and it happens, doesn't it? What are you really doing?
Being present.
And who's doing it? And it's a mystery. So Arjuna's entered the battlefield here knowing something about what his duty is, knowing something about the situation. But he's realizing the point where he really doesn't know. He's come to see, I don't know. He's been flustered in the situation. He doesn't know what to do. So he shows us what to do. He shows us what to do. You know, we were discussing yesterday in the Upanishad workshop. There are, they're called bhumikas. They're the stages of awakening within the Sanskrit traditions, within the Eastern traditions. So the Buddhist tradition will say something very, very similar. It's not exactly the same, but the point is the same. In the yoga traditions, in the Vedic traditions, bhumikas, 7 stages of awakening. And awakening to what? Awakening to the truth. Awakening to what's really here, the ever-present reality. Awakening to who I am, where I am, what is this world situation. What do I do? What does the universe do? Like this. Really awakening, being present. And that's what Bhagavad Gita is about this process of awakening. And the first step, you said it already, so you don't say it this time. The first bhumika is, who wants to take a shot? Don't. First, we know the answer. We're discussing it now. What is the first step of awakening?
Admitting you don't know.
Knowing that you don't know. Knowing that you don't know. And the world will bring us to this point. Through grace. And that's what Arjuna is being brought to. He's being brought to the point where he realizes all of my knowledge, all of my skills, all of the things I thought I had, I realize I don't know. And so he's been placed in a situation where he's been forced to realize it. Right? And through grace, we're each placed in situations like this, where we have to realize, I don't know. And then if we actually realize, I don't know, is there a question that arises?
Who does?
Who does? Who does? And remember that moment, that life completely changed. Right? Because then I wasn't as interested in following the blind anymore. Yeah? It's like, it's just going to be more of the same. You're going to get married again, and what's going to happen? You're going to get another car, and what's that going to do? You're going to get another job, and so what? You're going to get another $100,000, and what will you do with it?
Bigger.
Yeah, bigger something. That's what this
More, bigger.
this factor that says I know inside.
You're gonna fly to the moon.
That's what it says. You know, I can tell you what to do with it, but it's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. So So that's how this is universal in this way. Well, Arjuna finally comes to this point where life has made him come face to face with, I don't know. Okay. So he says this. I am weighed down with weak-mindedness. I am confused and cannot understand my duty. I beg of you to say for sure what is right for me to do. I am thy disciple. Please teach me, for I have taken refuge in you. And that also is a key step in the process. Who or what do we take refuge in? So, and Arjuna did know. He did know. But you know, here's the other very strange thing about this life, is we think we know, but what tells us if we really know or not? We think we know.
The outcome.
Well, the outcome, yeah. The outcome.
Not always.
Just a voice. It's just a mental.
Not always the outcome. Whether we're happy or not.
Well, the outcome shows that you don't know.
Repeat it.
So there's a beautiful commentary here given by Swami. He says, the beautiful sloka, I am your disciple, instruct me. The Bible says, ask and it shall be given. Here Arjuna is asking. He realizes his situation. He's come to know that he knows nothing. And that is the best understanding, because if you know that you don't know, you will want to know. If you don't know that, you won't even want to know. If somebody comes to tell you the truth, you will say, I don't need it. That's why the proverb, if a person knows not that he knows not, ignore him. If he knows that he knows not, go to teach him. If he knows that he knows, go learn from him. So, long before the orange robes or pilgrimage or any of that, I remember a magnificent teacher. She would speak of the 4 stages of learning like this. She would say the first stage is unconscious incompetence, when we don't know that we don't know. And the second stage is conscious incompetence. We're aware of the fact that we don't know. The third stage is in learning, is conscious competence, and that is we learn and we do consciously. And the fourth is unconscious competence. And that is when the transformation is completed, and this is an instrument of the Lord.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
Her teacher, I suppose.
Oh.
Guru Parampara.
The way it works, her Guru Parampara. So here is Arjuna ready to learn. And that's what we're seeing now in this situation, in this scene. He's ready to learn. And we see he wasn't ready to learn earlier. Right? And we can see that shift that's happening. The qualifications of a sincere student are clearly shown here. When you go to a teacher saying, I know a little bit, can you add a little more? Or I know, but can you verify it? You are just going there to check your capabilities, not to learn anything new. If you want to learn, go empty and open. I'm an empty cup. Please pour in all you can. If you go with a cup already full, even if the teacher pours something good, where will it go? Where does it go?
It just spills over.
It spills over. It's not that he or she is miserly. The teacher would like to pour, but it will overflow and go to waste. So empty your cup. So there's a good Zen story of a student who went to a Roshi or teacher demanding to be taught the secret of enlightenment. Instead of saying something, the Roshi began to pour the student a cup of tea. The cup became full, and the master kept on pouring, and the tea spilled over onto the floor. My cup is full, Master. Why do you keep on pouring more and more? And the teacher says, like this cup of tea, your mind is already filled with something. If I pour my knowledge into your cup, it will just go onto the floor because there's no room in your mind for it. You will interpret my instructions according to what you already think. Your mind will not be able to accept the truth I give you. But Arjuna proves to be a good student and an honest person when he says, this is Sloka 8, I do not see any remedy for this deep grief that parches my senses, even if I were to achieve prosperous and unrivaled royalty here on earth and even over the heavens. So he's come to the point where he doesn't see anything that could possibly give him happiness or satisfaction. He doesn't see any course of action that would do it. So he really is literally empty at this point. Right? He's empty of the notions that I know something. Can we feel that? Mm.
Sounds like.
Does it feel good?
Sounds like Katha Upanishad. Same kind of.
Well, we go through the qualifications there. And in order to know what we really want to know, which of course ultimately is where is this happiness or who am I? In order to know what we really want to know, we're going to have to be empty. We're going to have to realize that I don't know. So, and from here, really, the teaching can begin, and that's where we are in the Gita now. Is from this point, now Arjuna is ready. So Lord Krishna will teach the wisdom. You feel the shift, right?
Yeah.
No. So Sanjaya said, after speaking to Krishna this way, the Lord of the senses, Arjuna, who is the terror of his enemies, said, I won't fight, and became silent. Then, O great king, one last little...
The lizard tail.
The lizard tail, that's it. One last little habitual... Then, O great king, Krishna seemed to smile and spoke these words to the despondent warrior in between the two armies. And he says, you are grieving for those who should not be grieved for while uttering would-be words of wisdom. The wise grieve neither for the living nor for the dead. And we'll put that in company with this next sloka and then we can discuss. Number 12, there never was a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor any of these ruling princes, and neither will there ever come a time when we cease to be. So, what is he saying there?
The immortal being of...
What's he saying about immortal being? What's he saying about that?
It always exists. And
So
it has
what?
nothing
That's
to do with the body.
That's it. Why do I care about it?
I don't know.
Why do I care if it is immortal? What would I really care about?
Me.
If I were immortal.
Really nothing.
Sorry?
Other than the peace and the love, the feeling of being present.
What is Lord Krishna telling Arjuna?
That he's not the body.
Yes.
Or none of these people.
Yeah, anyone else, what would you contribute? I'd like to hear from someone else, anyone else on the subject, just to further it. There never was a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor any of these. And neither will there ever come a time when we cease to be. So what does he say?
Surrender. There's nothing to worry about.
Yeah, he's saying there's nothing to worry about. Thank you. Because why?
We're immortal.
Because we are all immortal. There has never been a time when we have not been, and there will never be a time when we are not. So don't worry, don't grieve. That's what he's saying. So what does that mean, Jagannatha? So what does that do for you?
Well, it affirms the reality of who we are.
Okay, it affirms the reality and practical application of that. So what does that do for you?
It removes suffering.
It removes suffering. Thank you. A little or a lot?
A lot.
A lot.
If you stop worrying, that's a lot of suffering gone.
If we really understand what he's sharing, and you understand that it applies to you, then does it completely remove suffering? If we really understand it. So, and you see how what he shares is completely juxtaposed to our notions and ideas. Even hearing it, you'll also be hearing objections coming from inside. And then practically try to apply it. So see when that fear arises. What is the cause of fear? Anybody, just take a shot. It's okay. What is the cause of fear? What is the cause of grief? Here we're dealing with grief.
Illusion of separateness.
Okay.
Well, it's thinking that something or that you or someone will end.
Yeah.
There's an end.
Yeah, that there's an end to it. So
And you don't have control.
that you have control.
You don't have control.
Fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown. Okay.
Non-being.
Fear of not being, which would be fear of the end.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, but there is an end to it. There is an end to this chapter. When you pass away, it's over for this one.
And then what?
And then you carry on. But still,
And then the next chapter begins?
yeah.
Where's the book?
He
So-
still carries stuff from last
Sorry?
chapter. He still carries stuff from last chapter to the next.
Yeah.
Book never ends.
So what Lord Krishna is sharing in the teaching is something that allows us to see that nothing's ever ending, nothing's ever beginning. There's actually not an end to anything, but there is an end to suffering. Here's we get this idea from the Upanishads and Shankaracharya's teaching. So he'll say that there are two powers of Maya, just for a second. Two powers of Maya. One of them is projecting the world. So there is world, and world continues. World is infinite also. World continues forever and ever. So you can say that this earth will have an end, but not really, because the reality of the earth is the five elements, and there's no end to the five elements. They always exist in gross form or subtle form. And besides that, as we can see, there are planets and civilizations being born and dying every moment. So there's no end to it. And also, when did it begin? You can't speak to that. You have to be silent to that. There's no beginning to it either. So that's the world. I remember this beautiful prayer. I had heard it so long before, but 2 years ago I was visiting a friend at a Catholic monastery. And Daksa, they gather and they pray 7 times each day. 7 times during the day. And there's a mechanical part of it. There's a doxa, part that they repeat every time. And it's like this: glory to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And then, see if anyone's heard this. As it was in the beginning, it is now and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. So that's the doxa. Somehow there's wisdom underlying it. So the people repeating it might not know. It's possible. But there is wisdom underlying it. And if we look, we see this world never ends. One universe is extinguishing, another universe is being born at the same time. The elements in it, everything here is eternal. Everything here is eternal. So you can say something ends, but it doesn't really. It just appears as something else.
But the experiences end, like the satsang would end in a couple of minutes.
It just changes. You continue to experience, don't you?
It's a difference.
What you're experiencing is just changing. It's just changing. So you experience waking state, and then you experience dream state, and then you experience deep sleep state.
The never-ending story.
The never-ending story. So you're experiencing a story that continues to play out. And wherever there's an end, there's a beginning. So fine, you can say there's an end, but there's a beginning in exactly that moment.
Could it be said we just pop into the story and pop out? The story always goes.
So what we're discussing isn't actually what Lord Krishna is speaking of, though. He's speaking of not this play, he's also speaking of you.
Right.
And you are not this plaything, you are not this body, you are not this thought. You are not what you are experiencing. So he's speaking to this. So he says, there's never been a time when you have not been, nor I, nor all of these, nor will there ever be a time when any of this ceases to be, when we cease to be. So he's not speaking of ends or beginnings, he's saying endless, beginningless. There's never been a time, and there will never be a time. Of course, the experiences will change, that's for sure, until you know what it is that you're experiencing. And then it just appears to change. Then it's like the great magic show, and it just appears this way and appears that way, but it's the same that's being experienced all of the time. Mm-hmm. Oh. So completely different from the experience that we're having, what we think the experience is. Okay, so we'll continue from here in the morning, but it's a good contemplation for the day. We keep facing this.
Yeah.
Right? We keep coming back to this point that I don't know. And now I've emptied my cup and I've prayed for wisdom. And what does the Lord tell me? In every single tradition. The Lord tells me you are a child of God. Or the Lord tells me you are immortal. Or the Lord tells me you are spirit everlasting. Like this. So, and objections will be raised, of course. This is part of the process. The rest of the Gita from here, really at this point, Lord Krishna has actually told us all that we need to know.
I'm confused about this concept of not knowing. It feels kind of lazy to me. It feels like you're taking your problems and saying, I can't solve them, you solve them.
In a way it is, if you know who you is.
Mm-hmm.
You can't hand them to another person and have them solved. That won't do any good. Mm-hmm. But who's the you that you're talking with? And so we continue, but here. When I sit at satsang in the morning, I say this to the Lord. I say, I am incapable of doing this. You're going to need to do it. Please take over. And I am completely relieved. And then somehow or other I sit here with you. Where do these words that I'm speaking come from? It's part of the great mystery. And I'm here, I get up early in the morning, I sit in prayer, and then I sit with the Sangha and all of this, so I have the awareness of this. But I also have an awareness of a higher power that every problem can be turned over to, and it will be resolved most efficiently, most effectively, much better than I could ever do.
Is that the ego wanting to solve a problem, like yourself?
Yeah. It's that you can imagine that the feeling of being separate itself is as if living and wanting to live separate, feeling that it's separate, feeling that it's alone, feeling that it's incomplete, and it has to do everything itself. Right? And it's responsible for everything that happens here. And it's the only one that can do things right.
It needs to fix everything.
It'll manifest differently in different of us, different people, but like this. But we discover, how do we discover Krishna in our life? Krishna is just a name, of course, for that absolute. How do we discover Christ in our life? How do we discover the Father in our life? We have to turn something over in order to discover. And but what has to precede that is we have to come to know that I can't do it well or at all, and that you, Lord, or I, the highest self, do exist. And so a little bit of faith when we empty, a little bit of faith might come, and then with that little bit of faith, we might take a step. That's the practical application of it. And then what we call a miracle might happen. Something happens, we see something happen that's beneficial. Or we look at something that happened and we see how that was actually beneficial. Because we're not so full of ourselves. So no doubt it's a process, but Krishna here is giving us the full board treatment. He's saying, here's what you need to know. You're falling apart here in front of your duty. You're absolutely falling apart, and it's shameful. It's shameful. You need to do your duty here. I've prepared you to do your duty here. And you're absolutely falling apart. And what you need to know is that you are not what you think you are. That you are immortal, and nothing you do here will kill you or anyone else here. And still you have to do your duty. So he'll continue from that. And I know all the moral arguments and discussions that come up. I get it. Those happen in here too. Should you then just go out and kill people? Of course not. You will pay the price for that so terribly. So terribly. What's worse than dying in the gas chamber is living with your terrible actions for eternity. And nobody's going to say that there's that kind of place that exists because nothing lasts forever, but you do. No experience will last forever, but you do. And no question that we have experiences that are uplifting, and we also have experiences that are downgrading, right? And we get to choose. This is the teaching. We get to choose which of those experiences to subject ourselves and the world to. That's the power. So he's not saying just go out and kill people, but he is saying you have a duty and you need to do your duty. And what you're thinking to be true is false. You're saying words of wisdom, but you're not speaking the truth. So he really puts us in that place. He really puts us in that place where we have to. And by the way, we can take the lazy route. We can say, well, then I'm just not going to deal with it. And that is low energy, and we can do it. We have the choice. And Lord Krishna even deals with Arjuna on this later. There's a scene where he shows him the battlefield with everyone dead.
Yeah.
And he says, with you or without you, this will happen. I'm giving you an opportunity to do your duty. So the adage of stand up and wake up still applies. If we know we don't know, that, just that by itself, doesn't change the fact that we're suffering. But it allows us to. If we act on it, if we say, then let me empty my cup and go to someone who knows something that's important. Oh. Okay, we need to close. You had something?
I was really wondering if Krishna shamed Arjuna. Did he say this is a shameful thing? Or is it he was just saying
He's just trying to get him to stand up.
Yeah.
So Arjuna is two right now. There are two Arjunas. Do you see that? There is the Arjuna that knows that Krishna is real and knows that Krishna is in the chariot and knows who Krishna is. Do you see that? That Arjuna is real. That Arjuna exists. And there's also the Arjuna that's freaked out. Yes? So it's as if there are two Arjunas, you see? And that's what we each deal with. It's as if there are two of us.
3 or 4.
Or more. But for practical intents, two.
Wherever two or more.
Deep inside there is a knower. Deep inside there is a knower. If you get to the depth, you'll find it. It's called your intuition or your conscience. So the knower exists, not separate from you. And it's real. Ultimately, it's more real than the non-knower. More real than the reactive nature. But we find ourselves in a situation, it's as if there are two, and that's what we're seeing with Arjuna. But the lower self now has turned it over and said, I'm your disciple, so please tell me, because I don't know. And so Arjuna is shaming. No, Arjuna is just trying to get, Lord Krishna is just trying to get Arjuna back out of that depression, back out of that lower state, so that he can be present and listen.
Yes.
It's love. It's just love. He yelled at him, yeah, but he yelled at him from love.
He did yell at him.
He did yell at him. He did. He said, you can hear it that way. Come on, Arjuna.
Stand up.
Okay, final prayers in RT, page 80. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Orai Rukneva Vandanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Orai Rukneva Vandanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Orai Rukmeva Vandanan Mritor Mokshiyamam Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makashitu Bhave Asato Ma Satkamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Mritam Gamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudashyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti 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 O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Humble Sakguru Shivananda Maharaj ki. Humble Sakguru Saraswati Mani ki. Okay, that's right.